In a wholly fictional near-future United States, 4 words captured on a covert audio recording, delete everything, ignite a constitutional crisis of unprecedented scale, a crisis that in this imagined narrative destroys 2 careers, fractures institutions, and pushes a polarized nation toward what commentators ominously call a third presidential impeachment, all beginning with a clandestine conversation allegedly recorded on December 20th, 2025, at a private resort gathering where power, secrecy, and impunity mingle freely, and culminating weeks later in a dramatic congressional hearing on January 8th, 2026, when lawmakers unveil an 8-minute audio file said to document the deliberate erasure of vast quantities of sensitive investigative material tied to a notorious, long-dead financier and his shadowy network of enablers, with the fictional recording portraying a sitting FBI director, here imagined as Director Callum Pate, boasting among trusted associates that he personally destroyed hundreds of victim statements, thousands of videos, and tens of thousands of documents on direct presidential instruction, dismissing the moral and legal consequences with chilling nonchalance. The story opens in the secure hearing room of the Senate Intelligence Committee, a chamber typically reserved for classified briefings, but now thick with tension, where senior senators take their seats beneath glaring lights as every major network's cameras wait to capture history. The chair holding aloft a small flash drive that reporters have been told contains evidence so explosive it makes Watergate seem quaint, while Director Pate sits at the witness table in a tailored suit, his confidence visibly eroded after weeks of rumors, leaks, and frantic legal maneuvering failed to prevent this moment. The chair gavels the session to order and announces that the committee will hear authenticated audio recorded at a private gathering weeks earlier, noting that independent forensic experts have verified the voices, timestamps, and integrity of the file, and that the recording was made by a veteran deputy director, fictionally named Marcus Chen, who resigned days before the hearing after concluding he had witnessed criminal conspiracy and could no longer remain silent. When the audio begins to play, the room falls silent as ambient sounds, clinking glasses, distant laughter, low music, give way to Pate's unmistakable voice, relaxed and confident, recounting how during the presidential transition he was pulled aside and told bluntly that legal process did not matter, that loyalty mattered, and that the problem connected to the financier had to be made to disappear, prompting an associate on the tape to ask what disappear meant and eliciting the now infamous reply, delivered casually, almost jokingly, that it meant deleting every file, every video, and every victim statement that could implicate powerful people, because, as Pate allegedly says, no one was going down over a dead predator who kept receipts. Gasps ripple through the chamber as senators lean forward, the accused man staring at the table as if willing the sound to stop, while the tape continues with an exchange in which Pate laughs about the illegality of the order, acknowledging that agency heads have gone to prison for far less, yet insisting he was not foolish enough to sacrifice his career for principle, sneering at the very concept of ethics as something naive people cling to when they lack power. The fictional recording grows darker as Pate describes the mechanics of the destruction, recounting a late-night visit to headquarters when the building was empty, using director-level credentials to access sealed databases, methodically deleting hundreds of victim statements, thousands of videos, and tens of thousands of documents, then disabling backups, all in a matter of hours, and expressing confidence that Congress could never prove what once existed, because, as he boasts, oversight depends on knowing what to ask for, and if the evidence is gone, accountability becomes a guessing game. Senators interrupt the playback to note that his description aligns precisely with a mysterious data loss months earlier that had been blamed on a technical malfunction, an explanation Pate himself had delivered under oath, and the implication that this was perjury hangs heavy in the air as the audio resumes, now turning to the subject of imprisoned accomplices and the strategic generosity shown to keep them comfortable and silent, with Pate allegedly describing favorable transfers, privileges, and conditions as part of an unspoken bargain to prevent cooperation with prosecutors, reinforcing the sense that this fictional conspiracy extends far beyond a single act of deletion into a systematic effort to obstruct justice at every turn. As the tape reaches its most damning moments, an associate asks whether Pate worries about getting caught, and he replies with breathtaking cynicism that prosecution is unlikely when the executive controls the machinery of justice, that loyalty will be rewarded, and, in the worst case, pardons await, while the victims, hundreds of them, are dismissed with a shrug as unfortunate casualties whose voices now exist only in digital oblivion. A callous remark that draws visible anger from lawmakers who shift in their seats, some clenching fists, others exchanging stunned glances. The audio then veers into outright menace as Pate outlines a philosophy of power learned at the highest levels, asserting that whistleblowers are neutralized not by rebuttal but by attack, by investigations, leaks, and career destruction designed to make examples of those who dare challenge authority, a statement that prompts senators to whisper about witness tampering statutes, even as the tape continues to its conclusion, with Pate summarizing his worldview, that institutions exist to serve those who control them, that justice is a slogan for public consumption, and that loyalty to the leader eclipses all other obligations. When the recording ends, silence blankets the room until the chair asks the witness whether he disputes the recording's authenticity, and after a long, excruciating pause, Pate's attorney invokes the Fifth Amendment on his behalf, a decision that, within this fictional account, is perceived as tacit confirmation and triggers a cascade of reactions across the political spectrum. Senators from both parties speak in turn, some with barely concealed fury, others with grave disappointment, acknowledging that if the recording is genuine, it documents multiple felonies, including obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, conspiracy, contempt of Congress, and retaliation threats, and that legal analysts cited in the narrative outline potential sentences measured in decades. The imagined fallout unfolds at a dizzying speed as lawmakers announce draft articles of impeachment against the president for abuse of power and conspiracy. Senior officials resign to distance themselves from the scandal, and emergency indictments are filed against Pate, who is escorted from headquarters as cameras capture the image of a once powerful figure reduced to silence, while the fictional whistleblower Marcus Chen appears before Congress under protection to explain that he recorded the conversation because he believed history would judge silence more harshly than exposure, recounting how the destruction of evidence had become a dark joke inside leadership circles, and how the phrase "delete everything" was spoken with pride, not shame. As the story widens, commentators speculate about how many others knew, how many participated, and how fragile the safeguards of democracy truly are when those entrusted with enforcement abandon restraint. And by the end of the narrative week, the recording has been viewed by hundreds of millions online, its four-word refrain echoing through protests, editorials, and late-night monologues as shorthand for corruption unmasked, with historians in the story comparing the moment to the infamous tapes from past scandals, but cautioning that this crisis is different, not because of the crime alone, but because of the brazenness with which power believed it could erase truth. The fictional account closes not with verdicts or resolutions, but with an uneasy reflection voiced by a senior senator who observes that democracies rarely fall in dramatic coups, but erode quietly when loyalty replaces law, when victims are silenced for convenience, and when leaders convince themselves that deleting evidence deletes responsibility, leaving readers with the unsettling implication that in this imagined America, the most dangerous words were not spoken in anger or secrecy, but casually, as if nothing at all could ever come of them. Delete everything.